Good morning. Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast. And I am joined with Anthony. Anthony, you're coming off of a New York Jets win. We probably want to bask in that. Right? Like, you don't get this feeling every week, right?
No, in fact, I don't get this feeling any week except this one. But no, yeah, big win for the Jets. Big win for my tech. We got a new headset. So yeah, we're living large over in my world. Will the Jets win another game this season? We'll see. But it's a bye week, so you can't lose on a bye week. So that, you know what, we're rolling through this weekend.
Yeah, and we are continuing our deep dive into the offensive line class. What did you think of this group of players this week?
So overall, I think we cover pretty much the entire spectrum. I think we're gonna get some guys that I'm not so sure how high their NFL ceiling is. I think we also are gonna get some guys though that could be, early top 50, if not potential first round picks, and there's some guys that have a lot to like about their game. So we're gonna cover the spectrum, and overall I would say this group is actually pretty solid. I think there's a lot of at least decent starters that we're gonna talk about.
Yep, and a couple of the guys that we're going to talk about might be 2027. They may not be class of 2026, but Anthony's going to give you all of that scoop when he does his deep dives here in a minute. We're going to cover Josh Kreutz from Illinois, Giovanni Hadi from Michigan, Anez Cooper from Miami, Jake Slaughter from Florida, Fa'amo from Wake Forest, Nicky Prangos from Stanford, Carter Smith from Indiana, Isaiah World from Oregon, Francis Mauigoa from Miami. And why don't you tell us about Josh Kreutz from Illinois? His father played many years for the Chicago Bears. Does Josh Kreutz have the same NFL pedigree as his father?
Yeah, we'll see. But yes, so you're absolutely right. Josh Kreutz is the son of Olin Kreutz, former All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler with the Bears. Just one of the great centers of the last 25 years. And you can tell. I think his brother also is on the Illinois roster. So this is a football family as it gets. And he plays, I think, like a coach's or a player's son or someone who's grown up around the game. I think he shows that kind of football IQ and that kind of awareness that you would expect. I will say, so he's listed by Illinois at 6'2", 290. His verified measures that we got over the summer have him at 6'1", 280, which by even center standards is not ideal. But I will say for someone with those measurables, you would kind of expect him to sort of have like a natural leverage, and he does that. He is shorter, but that helps him get under defenders' pads, being able to get some movement in the run game when he is able to get that leverage. I think he's very explosive out of his stance, has a good first burst that you like to see from the center position. Also has, I think, a decent enough athletic ability to be able to get to the second level and to make blocks there. I think the issues are just going to stem from, a guy who is, even if he's somewhere in the 280, 290 range, he's 6'1", 280, 290. He's got shorter arms. He is, I think, limited by just the physical traits that he just doesn't have. He really struggles against any sort of one-on-one strong bull rush. The Indiana game is not fun if you are a Josh Kreutz fan or an Illinois fan. He gets beat multiple times by really not even any sort of like complicated pass rush move or anything like that. Like, it is just straight power and technique from guys like Tyreek Tucker and those other interior rushers that Indiana has. And he just gets whooped on for 4 quarters basically. I also, I will say I think he does a decent job. Like, I talked about, like, getting to the second level and that kind of thing. But even for, because there are other undersized centers in this class. I think last week we talked about Logan Jones, Parker Brailsford. There are other undersized centers, and I don't think he has like the movement skills that you would want from an undersized center. Like, if you're going to buy into drafting that kind of player, you would expect them to have, really good natural lateral agility and quickness, and he's kind of just like decent in that regard. Also, just feel like there are times where he just lacks just like urgency as a blocker. Like, he's just not as quick and decisive in his movements sometimes that you would like to see. So I just overall I if you want to bet on the pedigree and the movement skills that he does have and that leverage and that coachability that he has, maybe you take him late day 3. But right now for me, I think he's a UDFA guy. I'm not sure how long we're going to see him last in the league.
Okay, a couple of other questions. Do you think his frame has enough to add, to get him up to like 295 or 300?
That's probably the max. I don't think he's 6'1", and he doesn't really even have long arms. So like, yeah, I'm sure he could put on some weight, just because 280 is very low, again, even for center standards. Yeah. So yeah, could he get to like 295, 300 and not lose that natural movement and fluidity that he has? Sure. But I don't know if he gets much bigger than that. And then at that point, is he still able to be successful, when it comes to getting to the second level and being a pull blocker and things like that? So I'm just not sure that he's quite got the physical tools needed to be an NFL offensive lineman.
So the next player, Giovanni Hadi from Michigan, 6'5", 315. What did you think?
Yeah, so Hadi, another one of these Michigan offensive linemen that it just feels like every year they've got at least, like 2 or 3 that we're talking about come draft time. And, Hadi is next man up on a relatively inexperienced offensive line compared to what we usually get from Michigan. But he is sort of the leader of that unit, 5th-year senior. I think he, as you would probably expect, he's a good athlete. Michigan does a good job of recruiting good athletes to their offensive line, and he is that. He was able. I watched him against Oklahoma and Washington this season, and you see him able to get out in space as a pull blocker, and can create blocks and create space on the outside and create run lanes for Justice Haynes in the backfield. As you would also probably expect with a Michigan player, his technique is pretty sound. Smart player. He's not gonna make boneheaded decisions. Not somebody that I think is gonna miss when it comes to picking up stunts. Like, he knows where to be and how to do it. I think just his issue is another example of just like, I don't think he has the physical strength and mass and power to be able to handle interior rushers at the next level. Like, even for somebody who plays in the Big Ten and is going against talented interior players in the Big Ten, you see him he'll get dog walked by strong interior players. This year against Oklahoma, multiple draft picks on that defensive line, particularly on the interior. The David Stone is the name that we're going to talk about next year, probably as a first round pick. Grayson Halton as well. Like, they have NFL caliber defensive linemen, and he just kind of struggled to not even, it's not even every rep he's getting like walked back and getting overwhelmed, but he doesn't get movement. He doesn't get, a strong burst and move people in the run game in the way that you would hope to see from a Michigan offensive lineman. Another issue too, he's missed 3 games this season with an ankle injury. So he's kind of had to deal with that. I think that also hurt his performance in a couple games as well. So it's another one where, like, if you took him, late day 3, maybe if you loved the kid and loved the experience and the leadership that I think he brings, that could be something. But again, I just don't see him being any more than a depth piece on an offensive line. So I think UDFA is also probably where we're looking for El Hadi at this point.
Okay. Anez Cooper, Miami, 6'6", 350 pounds. Is that a misprint?
No. No, it's not. And man, I'll tell you what, I didn't know what to expect from Anez Cooper. I hadn't, but prior to you sending us this list, and obviously we talked a lot about, and we're going to talk about Francis Mauigoa, the right tackle, and we talked about Markel Bell, the left tackle. So I didn't know what to get from another Miami offensive lineman, but man, Anez Cooper's, he's got some fun to him. This dude, 6'6". I've seen 347 if you really want to get technical, but we'll give him 350 because he fills it out. I loved reading, talking about his recruitment when Mario Cristobal went to his house and spoke to him. He was very quiet, very reserved, barely spoke when Cristobal was there, almost to the point where Cristobal wasn't going to take him, or wasn't going to want to offer him a scholarship and get him on the team. But he has since become very much outspoken. The team voted him the biggest trash talker on the team, and you will see him jawing some players. Our guy Clay Fink, he in that Florida State game, he was mouthing off to Earl Little, the safety there. So I'm a fan of his confidence. He's got that chip on his shoulder, and you don't just see it when he's talking; you see it when he's playing. Obviously, again, 6'6", 350, imposing size. He's got over 34-inch arms, and he just can absolutely swallow up defenders with just the length and the power that he brings. But for a guy who's 350, and I read too, he apparently came to campus and at one point was close to 400 pounds, and has since lost 50 pounds to get to this 350 number. He can move. He can move for a 350 pounder. Now, does he move as well as a 300 pounder, 290 pounder? Probably not. But 350, you're not expecting him to be a beautiful ballerina when it comes to movement skills. But he can haul ass. He can get out in space. There's that one play against Louisville that I'm very easily you could find on X if you want to find it. But it's a screen pass to the running back, and my God, he just decleats the Louisville defender. I don't know his name, but I pray for his family. It is a violent, nasty, just out in space block that you love to see. You also see too, like he is dragging piles, pushing piles. Like he gets in there again, like just a competitor. Man, you love to see it. And where you could probably guess honestly where he needs to improve and what he needs to work on, but I think his feet can get a little too sandbagged. It needs to be more active when it comes to his footwork. If speed rushers get under his hands and under his pads, he's going to get beat. Like he just does not have that flexibility to be able to get down and beat defenders with that kind of elite bend. He's not an ideal athlete, and super quick, again, as you would expect for a 350-pounder. I also think, too, like having Francis Mauigoa next to him on that offensive line is helpful to him and probably masks some of the issues that I'm talking about. Like they're not as frequent because of Mauigoa's presence on the right at the right tackle spot. But I wrote down my grade for Anez Cooper is specifically Jim Harbaugh 3rd round pick. Like that's the grade. Like he's not going to be a 3rd round pick for Mike McDaniel or Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay or like that. But yeah, Jim Harbaugh, the Texans, like the Cardinals, like these downhill gap heavy teams, they will love to watch Anez Cooper just destroy defensive linemen with his size and power. And who knows if he keeps up, again, he's 350 pounds, so he certainly can afford to lose more weight. And, if he's able to get down to like, even like a 330, and can improve his foot quickness and improve that athleticism and agility, he could be even better. But I love him as a just downhill phone booth, mess you up kind of blocker at the guard spot.
Is he overall getting an early day 3 grade from you?
Yeah, probably. Because again, I do think he's kind of just, he is what he is, and what he is, it's awesome if it fits what a team wants, but he doesn't have that, other high end guards that we're going to talk about, like that can be versatile scheme wise and can do different things for you. He's not that, but the one thing he does well is just move people and run through people, and he does that awesomely. So, but yeah, he's probably an overall day 3 pick. If Jim Harbaugh wanted to take him at pick 75, I wouldn't be shocked.
Right. And then my next question would be, if he goes to the Chargers or the Ravens or the Texans, do you think he is starting year 1?
Maybe. I mean, obviously it depends who else is on those rosters. Because I think it's, I think like right guard is his spot. Like he doesn't, that's kind of the other thing too, is he doesn't really offer positional versatility. Just because like he doesn't have the foot speed to play tackle. And he would probably need to just adapt to play on the left side if he was going to stick there. But if you needed a right guard and he fits your scheme, I don't think it's like totally out of the question that he could win the starting job. But what probably will happen is he is brought in at the, whenever he's drafted, probably on day 3, and starts as a backup, and then by like year 2 or 3 could be a guy that comes in and becomes the starter if somebody leaves in free agency or somebody gets hurt or whatever it is.
Right. And again, so if you're listening to Anthony's scouting reports, these are my favorite podcasts, right? 'Cause this is me learning about the players and having a chance to talk about them. When Anthony gave the first 2, he said they were depth offensive line, right? I think that was your polite way of giving your grade. Mm-hmm. Anez Cooper is not a depth offensive lineman based upon what I heard. I heard he is a potential NFL starter whether that's year one or year two is going to depend on the player and the team that drafts him.
Correct. Yeah, I definitely think Cooper's ceiling is the highest of the three that we've talked about so far.
Yep. So loved hearing that about Anez Cooper from Miami. So the next player we're going to talk about is Jake Slaughter, the center from Florida at 6'5", 303. What are your thoughts on Slaughter?
Yeah, so Slaughter's interesting because Slaughter got coming into the season. I think he sort of became like the poster boy for PFF. He was touted as easy center one. PFF had him like 11th in their top 100 college football players, or like something like just outside the top 10, I think it was. And I think a lot of people questioned that. And that's not to say, we thought he was a bad player. But easy first round center didn't quite feel right. And now, watching him this season, I think that's still very much the case. What to like about him? Fifth year senior. He's been starting for years now at Florida. I think he plays with a really good, sturdy, solid base. He can get wide, and he's not going to get, for somebody who, he's listed at 300. I don't think he's quite 300. But he's not as like physically dominated on a consistent basis in the way that you would get from other undersized center, like Kreutz we talked about. I think it's much more of a problem with Kreutz than it is with Slaughter. Slaughter's calling card is he is a top-notch athlete at the center position. Gets out of his stance well. His ability to move, climb, and latch on the second level and in space is, I think, the best, or at least one of the best in the center class as a whole. It does, I will say too, I also think he has a really good football IQ. You will see him pre-snap recognizing blitzes and stunts and being able to adjust to that as a play develops. Good footwork as well. Like, he is the leader of, I don't even think just the offensive line. I think he's the leader of like the team, or at least the offense. And you see that both like on the field and also kind of how they've dealt with the whole Billy Napier situation as well. Like, he has been out there. I read like he's been talking to recruits, trying to get them to stay. He's been kind of rallying the team. So like he is a leader, and that's also not something that goes on everybody's scouting report. So I think that's also worth mentioning. I think it's just a guy who is maybe 300 pounds. Like, I just don't know if he's going to be able to handle NFL caliber interior defenders. I think last week, like, we talked about, like, I forget who it was. It honestly might have been Logan Jones. Like, we talked about, like, how would he handle, like, a Jeffrey Simmons? I would worry if I had to put Jake Slaughter against, like, a Jeffrey Simmons or any of these other just, like, these interior defenders that are pushing 320, 330 even. Like, I just don't, like, Slaughter just doesn't have that natural strength and power. Now, where I think he's, again, I talked about, like, I think his footwork and his fundamentals in terms of, like, setting up as, in his stance and being able to get a wide base and be able to pass protect that way is better than most undersized centers. So that will help him. But, like, I watched the LSU game, this year's LSU game, and, like, he gets absolutely thwacked by a interior rusher coming on a slant, and he just gets, like, knocked down not knocked down, but like knocked back, and then the guy just runs past him and goes, and I don't think it was a sack. I think it was a QB hit or whatever, but like he gives up that interior pressure. So I think he's a starting center in the NFL. I am not anywhere near like first round pick that, again, I think I've seen from some people. Decent player, like, late day 2. I guess if we're talking about like, a potential starting center, like, late day 2, early day 3 is probably where I have him. I also think too, this is not going to be another winner chicken dinner when it comes to the center class, kind of like last year. So if you really need a center, maybe he gets juiced up a bit, but I think there's other, like last year it was just devoid of any starting caliber centers. It felt like this year I think there's at least a couple that could be starters in the NFL. So I don't think Slaughter's just like running alone when it comes to competition in the draft. But yeah, low end starting center is probably what I would like hope for from him.
Okay. And based upon what my interpretation of listening to you, is he more likely to be a center for like a McVay offense or a Mike McDaniel offense as opposed to like a power running team like the Ravens or the Texans?
Yeah, he's definitely. Again, like it comes down to just like he is the athlete and the man that can win in space and can win at the second level. Like that's his game. So yeah, where we talked about who was it? Just Anez Cooper. Anez Cooper is a gap power run downhill, scheme kind of player. Slaughter is get out in space, inside or outside zone, get to the second level, win up there, get out in space, on quick passes and screen passes and stuff like that, and get out and block there. Like that's his calling card. So yeah, the McVay offense, the McDaniel offense, any sort of that style is definitely what I would expect him to be.
Okay. Ali Fa'amo from Wake Forest. I believe his position is listed as offensive tackle, but I have heard he should kick inside. Where are you in the Wake Forest offensive line?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm going to attempt it. Lily Fa'amo. He is he's an interesting watch. I think so. He's a fifth-year senior. He was actually initially recruited as a defensive lineman coming out of high school. Moved over to the offensive line when he got to Washington State. He played at Washington State for 3 seasons before moving over to Wake Forest when they hired the Jake Dickert, who was the Washington State head coach. He followed his coach over to Wake Forest. Now is the starting right tackle there. I think I watched him a little bit last year because he was kind of popping up on draft radars a bit, but then he decided to stay for his 5th year. And I can see where guard discussions could be had. I think he has really good pop in his hands, and he brings, I think, that knockback power in the run game. He's 6'5", 318, so he has a body type that I think can work either inside or outside. I think he does well when it comes to he can move out of his stance and get in front of blockers very well. He has the foot speed and natural athleticism to be able to do that. Also, one of the better blockers I've seen when it comes to being able to get low, have that natural flexibility, and then drive defenders backwards with, again, that initial pop, knocks a defender back, and then gets under him and drives. Like, he can do that at a very, I think at a high level. The problem is, like, I watched him. What was the other game I watched of him? I watched him against North Carolina State, and I think he looked good and all those things that I just talked about. Then you watched him this past week against SMU, and that tape was not good. And the problem was, like, it wasn't even the first quarter. I'll run down what happened in the first quarter. He's walked back on a strip sack by Terry Webb, who I actually, funny enough, like, I tweeted about Terry Webb, and I was like, oh, this dude's a potential prospect. Not even realizing that we had to watch Fa'amo for, like, offensive line. And then I went back. I'm like, oh, wait. I put two and two together. And I was like, oh, boy, well, this is going to hurt his profile then. So he gets walked back on a strip sack. Terry Webb gets, like, he gets inside, or pushes him back, and then gets inside, basically, like, sticks his hand up and knocks the ball out from their quarterback. Then, like, he overcommits to his spot, as he's dropping back, and the defender basically, like, hand swipes him and beats him and gets a hit on the quarterback. Then he gives up his outside shoulder to Terry Webb, who, mind you, is 313 pounds. He's not like this, elite speed rusher guy. But Fa'amo gives up his outside shoulder, can't get his footing on Webb, and I think it went down as a pressure. But, like, yeah, that was all literally within, like, 5 minutes of gameplay in the first quarter against SMU. So it felt like it was maybe it was just a bad game, and we caught him on a bad week. I'm fully, open to that being a possibility. But it really does make me question now what his ability to handle speed to power at the NFL level is, which I now think, goes back to that discussion you talked about is he a guard? I would say I'd be willing to try him at tackle. I do think he, again, because he has that foot speed and flexibility and pop in his hands that you would like from an offensive tackle in the NFL. So I'm not totally out on him being an offensive tackle in the NFL. But it wouldn't surprise me if he does get moved inside. I think one of his other issues is I feel like his initial punch often just lands too high. And that's where he also can get beat. That's kind of what happened in the Terry Webb scenario that I laid out. Like, I don't think he always lands where he needs to land, and so if you move him inside, you're kind of mitigating that issue because you're just kind of launching into a guy as opposed to trying to drop back and then also try to figure out where to land your hand. So I see the guard argument. I think you can treat him as a tackle prospect. I'm going to treat him as a tackle prospect. But if moving inside, gives him more of an NFL career, I wouldn't be shocked.
Got it. So that was pretty good. And then I have some questions. As soon as we're off air, I'm going to ask you about the SMU defensive tackle.
Will do. I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah. Okay, so Nicky Prongos from Stanford. It was really hard to find a photo of him in a Stanford uniform. 6'7", 310, probably draft class of 2027. But what else do you want to tell everybody about Nicky Prongos?
Yeah, so Nicky Prongos, another guy that, like, I had heard nothing about until about 2 weeks ago, when I think he started cropping up. I feel like I saw like an Ian Cummings tweet about him, I know Trevor Sikkema talked about him on their podcast. So not, wasn't on my radar at all. And it kind of seems like it wasn't really on anybody's radar coming into the year. Obviously playing for Stanford, not a beacon of NFL talent right now as it stands. But this dude's really, I get it. I get why we're talking about him now. Fascinating background. 3-sport athlete, but didn't start playing football until senior year of high school. Before that, he played baseball and he played basketball, and he actually played on the Lithuanian national baseball team and competed in the Europe. I don't know if it's like the European Championship or the Euro Championship, whatever their thing is, but like they lost to Greece, whatever. But like he was a national, a Lithuanian national baseball player. Not that many in 2021, so 4 years ago. But I guess in high school decided he's going to pursue football. Was initially recruited by UCLA. Was there for a couple years, then transferred over to Stanford this past year, and has become now their starting left tackle. And I'll tell you what, like he's got the length, it appears. I don't have a number, but it looks, just watching him, it looks like he has tackle measurables. Good, solid flexibility at that tackle spot. Again, I talked about the athletic background. You see it. Has really good movement and movement skills and agility when he plays on the outside. Also recovers very well, I think. He can get beat by, he can get beat by quite a few things. Power. I think he's slow to react on stunts and can miss blitz pickups. But he's not just always out of a play when that happens, and so you can appreciate that. Also has taken snaps at multiple offensive line spots. I think you are, I think the potential and the ceiling is there, for left tackle. So that's kind of what I would, hope that he can become. But he does offer you that versatility if needed. And I talked about it, but like all of the issues, or I should say most of the issues that he has as a player, I think are really leaning on the fact that he just doesn't have a boatload of playing experience. Again, didn't start football until senior year of high school. And has been thrown into Big Ten and Big Ten and then ACC competition, and like hasn't been perfect, but considering all that, like has played pretty well, I'd say. So I kind of want to see, again, I want to see him just develop his football IQ and acumen and be able to react quicker on, again, those stunts and the blitz pickups. I think he needs to fill out his frame a little more, particularly in his lower half. I think he can stand to put on a few more pounds of muscle and be able to get that natural lower strength, that lower body strength, and be able to drive defenders backwards in the run game. I think that's sort of the next step for him. But like as a pass protector, again, you like the athleticism, you like the length, and you like the movement ability. So I think he's a redshirt junior right now. Could he declare, because this tackle class is kind of just devoid of top end talent? Sure, but it feels more like he's going to be talked into staying back one more year, potentially transferring. I mean, who knows who's even going to be coaching at Stanford next season? And I imagine, there will be other Power 4 teams calling, particularly like in the Big Ten or in the SEC. If somebody else that is on this list that we're going to talk about is going to go into the NFL draft, I think Oregon left tackle is an intriguing proposition for him. next year. But next year, at the same time, I won't be surprised if we're talking about him as a first round tackle. I just don't think he's like quite there yet, and all the things that he can work on and improve on are better suited to do just with that extra year of eligibility in college.
Yeah, and I think first round tackle, I don't want to say it's overrated, but that's not the only path. And the reason why I say that is somebody had a graphic and they listed the draft position of 5 times 32, so that's 160. So they listed the draft position of the 160 starting offensive linemen. And there's almost as many starting left tackles that were taken in round 2 as there were in round 1. Like Deion Dawkins, who's like year 9 for Buffalo, was a second round pick. And Deion is not the only starting NFL left tackle that was taken in the second round. So.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, like, it's not even so much for, I mean, obviously, like, if you're a first rounder, you get the guaranteed 5th year, like, that's cool, whatever. I've always thought that is a little overrated for players. You get a second contract, I don't care when it comes. But for me, again, I think it's more just about for him as a player. Like, I don't think, like, you can, for NFL teams, you can find starting left tackles that can develop into really good left tackles in the second and third round. I think for him, though, to maximize what he can be at the NFL level, I think it's worth, staying and developing and getting with a really good offensive line coach in college, as opposed to, if he declares this year, goes second or third round, I don't think he sees the field. And so you're kind of just going to be on the bench and then hope to be a starter, come year 2 or 3, which is fine. But I feel like when you have the potential to, you're going to make, again, especially in the age of NIL, you're going to make money. It's not like you're losing out on that much money. So I would say just stay in college to get to maximize yourself and maximize what you're going to offer NFL teams, and so that way you can step in and be ready for the NFL game. Because again, I think he's got all the athletic ability to do it. But yeah, if he declared now, if they make a calculation that, again, just because this tackle class is really devoid, especially a left tackle. I mean, we're going to talk about one that I think can go first round. But like the other high-end guy we're going to talk about today is a right tackle. So, there isn't a huge load of competition in terms of left tackles in this draft. And so if that's the reasoning for coming out and hoping you can boost your stock during, like, Senior Bowl, Combine, all that, I can't totally fault that logic.
So it's really cool for me when we podcast and it was a player you wanted to dive into or you didn't know about. So in the case of like Anez Cooper or Nicky that we just covered there, that's really cool. Here's another new one. I think Carter Smith's name has been known to me for maybe 3 weeks. Jerry and Owen covered Carter Smith last Tuesday. What did you have on the Indiana tackle?
Yeah, so Carter Smith, another one that I think was getting minimal, if any, draft buzz coming into the season, and has emerged as, when so many left tackle prospects have been up and down, to say the least, he's been rock solid for Indiana this season. Carter Smith is interesting for a number of reasons. One of them is so we talk about, Curt Cignetti's transformation at Indiana and obviously he's, just a complete overhaul of what that program was versus what the program is now. And a lot of it is usually talked about, he brought so many guys over from when he was at James Madison, and a lot of those players transferred over with him. And obviously now, like, Fernando Mendoza is a transfer from Cal. So, like, he just brought in, like, all his own guys and, has made Indiana what it is. Carter Smith is a carryover from the previous coaching regime, and considered transferring, was in the portal when Cignetti was named the coach and brought in, but ultimately decided, I think correctly, to stay at Indiana and be a part of the Cignetti, be a part of Cignetti's team. This guy is also, I will say, a former star at volleyball, and another one where, you don't always have. We talk about a lot with guys that have, like, these athletic backgrounds outside of football. Carter Smith in volleyball. I talked about Prongos in baseball. Like, it's a lot of these guys have these sort of other sport backgrounds, but it doesn't always translate to the football field. But I think in the case of Prongos, and I think in the case of Carter Smith, like, it does. You see the natural athleticism, the natural footwork. And I think this is also a reflection of Cignetti's staff and their coaching. Textbook technique of being able to square up, land his hands on a defender's chest. His footwork, I talked about, like, is so sound. It allows him to anchor consistently against different kinds of pass rushers that he faces in the Big Ten. He has the athleticism to be able to mirror, to be able to handle second moves and counters. He also, like, he'll get his hands on you and then he'll latch on. Like, he won't let go. Again, like, for a guy who's, he's 6'5", 313, like, not exactly imposing, dominant NFL tackle measurables, but because he's so sound fundamentally and so sound what he's being coached up in and his experience and the athleticism that he has, like, he's able to at least, like, mask the deficiencies that you would think he would have when it comes to just raw strength and raw power. It doesn't show up frequently, and that's why, like, I mean, his PFF grades are, like, off the charts. He's like 80 or 90 in every single, like, run blocking and pass blocking performance basically that he's had all season. So I think he's given up, like, literally 4 pressures he's been credited with this season. Yeah, 4 pressures this year. And he has a 91.9 pass blocking grade, which is just, pretty absurd, especially when you can look at some of the other top tackles that are going to get drafted, and there's always at least, like, 1 or 2 bad games. Smith just does not have one this season. Now, I will say, other than, I would say, like, Oregon hasn't really played hasn't played Ohio State, hasn't played anybody, non-conference schedule that would, really challenge him, I think, or like potential NFL pass rushers. So that's something to sort of monitor as Indiana presumably makes a deep playoff run, if he's able to hold up against, if they play an SEC powerhouse like an Alabama or a Texas A&M, if Cassius Howell is going against him potentially in the playoffs, I would be very intrigued to see how his athleticism matches up to a guy like Cassius Howell. I think his issues, though, like, from what we've seen this year, like, he's just not a true road grader kind of run blocker. Like, I don't think he's, like, a bad run blocker. I just don't think, again, he's 6'5", 313. I don't think he brings that just a raw power that you're going to expect to see him just moving defensive linemen off their spot and being able to just, push guys backwards several yards. Like, he's just not that kind of blocker to me. I think you'll see him at times trying to outmuscle people and move people, and he'll lose his footing. He'll lose his balance because, again, he just doesn't have that that strength that you would like. I also just wonder, like, again, it's tough to tell because I don't really think he's played any particularly challenging games besides Oregon. But, like, what is his NFL ceiling in terms of the athleticism and the smaller frame at the left tackle spot? Like, again, these Indiana guys, it's tough because, like, they're so well coached and they're so fundamentally sound and they play so well. They're putting out really good tape, but, like, how much does that extend to what they can be in the NFL? And that's kind of why, again, like, I really want to see what Indiana as a whole, but particularly, like, guys like Carter Smith, who we're talking about as potential high draft picks, like, where do they measure against, like, legit NFL caliber competition? So it's sort of a wait and see approach I'm taking with him. I think right now I'd say he's like a day 2 guy. Could crack the top 50 because of just how well he's played. But I would question, like, again, like, even like Caden Proctor, for example, like, has had an up and down year, but flashes first round tackle, against SEC competition. Whereas I'm just not quite sold that Carter Smith has, like, done that against Big Ten competition. But could he, move me and convince me if he plays as well as he's played against higher levels of competition? Yeah, absolutely. So, but he's a good player. Jury's out on if he's a great player.
So, I love it. Do you think he's a tackle? Like, is he a Kyle Shanahan tackle?
Yeah, I think he's got the athleticism, the ability to get out in space and be effective as a zone blocker. Because, again, I kind of just, my question right now is just what his NFL strength is against, either, interior guys if he's going to, have to block in the run game, or, the edge rushers that we see that convert speed to power so well at the NFL level. Is he going to be able to handle that if he is a starting left tackle? That's kind of my question. So I think a Shanahan style offense that relies on, like, the quick game and the getting out in space, I think, is more suited for his skill set.
Yep. So, and again, Jerry and Owen covered him on Tuesday. So Owen has the luxury of having PFF Ultimate, which is a way to get all 22. It really doesn't get any better, but Owen watched the 4 pressure reps. So PFF Ultimate can let you queue them up. Owen pointed out that every single one of those pressures was the same move, which is, and you may be able to elaborate on this, but he says somebody crossed his face, which I assume meant it was either a stunt or a loop, but somebody was able to go, like, from his right shoulder to his left shoulder to his right shoulder. And when somebody went across him, that was ultimately where he gave up all 4 pressures. Does that ring a bell, or is that something you'd have to go back and check again?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely does, because, again, I think it was, it was in the Oregon game where I saw that, and I think even this past week against UCLA, that might have been the case as well. But yeah, I think it is, again, like, it's sort of, you like the athleticism that he brings, but I just don't see him consistently facing those kinds of pass rush moves and pass rush arsenals that he's going to see as a starting left tackle potentially in the NFL. So I want to see like Cassius, again, like a Cassius Howell, for example, who we see win in a variety of ways. For Texas A&M, like, that's the kind of challenge that he needs to enter that first round conversation. So yeah, but I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that that's the issue with him, because I just don't think his natural upper body strength and his hands are always the most active.
Okay. And then the last comment, you don't need to respond, but Jerry Ostrowski wants to see Carter Smith line up in a 3-point stance more. Isaiah World from Oregon, 6'8", 318 pounds. What do you have on Isaiah World, Andrew?
Yeah, so World. So this is somebody who's just now playing. This is his first year at Oregon after transferring over from Nevada. He's a fifth-year senior. I watched. So this is actually one of the guys that I watched over the summer. Was getting plenty of, talk and hype over the summer as he was making this transfer to Oregon, and you see why. Like he has reps. He has reps where he is a first round left tackle, easy, no question. The size and the length and the strength that he has for somebody who is only, he's around about that 310 to 320 range. He's built like a left tackle, and he looks the part of an NFL left tackle. His ability to able to grip defenders and like not get shaken off. I think he's really solid in that department. Overall, I would say his hand placement too is solid. I think one of the things too that he's worked on that I didn't always love when I watched him over the summer is I think he's done a better job of blocking in space, consistently finishing in space, and as he's running, with a running back or whatever, I think he's done a better job at that this year than I saw over the summer, which is also, it's good to see that he's doing that against higher levels of competition than what he faced at Nevada. I just still, I'm not so sure that he is able to, be a consistent run blocker in the NFL. I think his anchor also, I still see reps where his anchor's not what I would want it to be. Again, moments where I love it and he wins so easily and so cleanly. But then other times, he just gets pushed back and doesn't, keep his feet set and keep his feet down and able to stand his ground. I also feel like his first step in his pass stats can be choppy at times, not ideal, or not as consistent as you'd like. It feels like you're not getting the same Isaiah World week in and week out. You have games like I thought he looked good against Northwestern. I thought he looked great against Rutgers, but then the Penn State game, he gets kind of knocked around a bit and gets messed up a little bit by Deni Dennis Sutton, and the other Penn State defensive lineman. So it's a little too hot and cold, a little too inconsistent for me right now to say clear first round pick, but the flashes. There's first round flashes and there's first round reps, and that's there, but I just need it to be more concrete than what I've seen so far this season and even going back to last season.
So I liked how you could mention about let's say the inconsistent first round reps. I don't know that I've seen a mock done by anyone where he doesn't go round one. But that's good to know that consistent play or Oregon going to the playoffs and him having to play the Cassius Howell or the Keldrick Falk or the Reuben Baines of the college football world will probably really help his stock if he can play consistently in the playoffs. So.
Yeah, and I mean, just to be clear, I think he's a top 50 player. I think if you're putting out first round reps or like even games, I mean, I would say like he has multiple first round games this season. If you're putting that out, and you don't have like a egregiously bad, like Caden Proctor has the Florida State game that's kind of hanging over his head. World doesn't really have that kind of really bad game this season. And so when you don't have that, but you're putting out first round games and first round tape, it's tough to not be a first round as a left tackle, and you check every box from a physical traits and athleticism standpoint. It's tough to not go in the first round. If I did a mock draft today, he probably goes end of first round. But that said, there's the conversation about can he be a first round pick, and then it's can he be a top half first round pick, and that's where I'd be like, nah, I don't think he's not quite there yet. But yeah, it's a solid player that you'd be comfortable betting on because of the good things that he's able to do.
So one of the things I love about this podcast is we can have offensive linemen, which are the star of the show. Francis Mauigoa from Miami. He is, as you pointed out earlier in the podcast, he is Miami's right tackle. A lot of people suggest he is not just a guard at the NFL level, but an all-pro guard, Pro Bowl level guard at the NFL level. Where are you at Francis Mauigoa from Miami?
Yeah, so this is this has kind of been the guy, right? Everybody's been talking about since the summer, this season. He is, as you said, Miami's right tackle. He is only a junior, so technically he could not be in this draft, but he feels pretty. I would be floored if he decided not to declare at this point. Hand up, I came into the year and I said he's a third round right tackle prospect, and I've come around in that sense. I'm not that low on him as a tackle now, but I still think guard is the way to go. Watching him, I think one of the things over the summer that stood out and still stands out watching him this year, he is a unit that can move and displace people in the run game. So we talked about, with Carter Smith, you don't see that kind of just driving defenders off their spot and getting movement and opening those run lanes in the run game consistently. Mauigoa does that. One of my favorite plays from last year that I watched of him and of any offensive lineman was in the Pop-Tart Bowl when the first play of the drive, Mauigoa has a wonderful double block on the right side of the offensive line and opens up a huge lane for Damian Martinez to be able to run, I forget how many yards, 70, 80-yard touchdown, whatever it was. But just such a solid run blocking rep, and he does those kinds of solid run blocking reps pretty much every game. I think as a pass blocker, I think he has great hand usage, great hand placement. One of the things that I think is I don't want to say underrated, but I maybe should get talked about a little more, is his ability to bait pass rush moves and to bait defenders to try to beat him with some sort of rip move or a club move or whatever. And he'll use his hand to sort of invite a defender to think he's giving up positioning and giving up leverage when he's actually not. And then he's able to win because he has the proper hand usage that he needs to be able to win the rep. It's a testament to Mauigoa as a player. Also, just Miami's offensive line coach, Alex Mirabal, and obviously Mario Cristobal, who is a former offensive lineman in his own right and a former offensive line coach. you could tell they know how to coach the position at a high level. They've done such a great job with pretty much all their offensive linemen. Mauigoa, I think, is like the creme de la creme of what they've been able to do, just because of his physical and athletic gifts that he brings for a guy who's, I've seen him listed 6'6", 329. I don't know if he's quite that big now. He probably is closer to that 315. He's probably like the 320-ish spot if I had to guess. But like one of the things too that I think he's improved on for me that I was concerned about, I thought his football IQ lacked a bit last year, and gave up, whether it was some bad whiffs as a pull blocker, or failed to recognize like blitz pickups and stunts. It felt like his eyes would just be in the wrong place too many times, and that worried me for somebody that was being talked about as a first-round tackle. But I think he's cleaned that up a bit. I think too, like, for somebody as big and strong as he is, I wish his anchor was better in pass protection. He does kind of get pushed back when a guy gets in his chest. He doesn't hold his ground as much as you would like for, again, somebody who is such a road grader and people mover as a run blocker. He doesn't always have that same kind of ability and strength when he's out in pass pro, and he has to rely on being able to be in position as well as utilizing his strength. And that's still kind of an issue that I see with him. He gives up his inside shoulder like just annoyingly amount of times. The Notre Dame game, he did it against Boubacar Traore. And then in the Florida game, it was a true freshman that was able to sort of just like get to his inside with a counter and just beat him. So like it's really those things why I think guard is the move. Like, the leaving his inside open, not having as ideal an anchor as you would like, not always being the most consistent blocker in space. Like, he has reps where he clearly just dominates in space and can knock people down, but other times where he just doesn't always land as cleanly as you would like. So I think all of that is to say, like, I think the potential is good as a tackle prospect. I've come around a bit. I'd probably say like early second, late first as a pure just tackle prospect. If we grade him out as a guard, I think he could be like an all-pro. Like that's the kind of guard ceiling that I would project for him, which is why like I think guard is the move. So in that sense, I guess like I would try, if you want to try him out as a tackle, I'm more comfortable with that than I was last or in the summer, but I'm still not quite sold. Whereas I just think guard is easy money. just go to guard, be a right guard, dominate people. Like if he went to the Bengals and just was their plug and play right guard, I could fathom a world where he just becomes their best offensive line starter. Like it's just that cut and dry to me.
Yeah, and I think Francis Mauigoa is a Bengal. I've done that mock draft a couple of times, and everybody's like, I like that first round pick. Like Mauigoa to the Bengals feels like Joe Alt to the Titans.
Yeah, I think it's just too easy. I just like they need it, and he fits. And again, like it's just, sometimes a plug and play starter, even at a position like guard, because they're probably picking top 10. And so if you use the argument of like, oh my God, are you really going to take a guard in the top 10? I would say, well, Quentin Nelson went top 5 and worked out, or top 6 actually, I think it was, but like worked out just fine. No complaints that Quentin Nelson was a top 6 pick. So I think that's the level of play that you're potentially getting from from Mauigoa as a guard.
Yeah, and I think there should be a couple points of emphasis, right? If you're drafting starters, those are good picks, whether the starter is an all-pro or the starter is just a plus-level player, right? So you can go with positional value like Caleb Downs, Francis Mauigoa, who Mauigoa is a guard, Caleb Downs is a safety. The positional value may be lower, but you are drafting what will likely be a Pro Bowl starter, right? So you're drafting a high-level player at a position that would be less premium. So draft starters and then figure the rest of your roster out. That's the Brandon Beane theory of team building.
Especially too, like if you're a team like the Bengals, where you can think of it as drafting a starting right guard in the top 10. You can also think of it as keeping Joe Burrow for a full season.
Yes.
Which that value is first overall value if you look at it that way.
Yes, absolutely. So Anthony will not be here next weekend, but we will be back for a podcast. Drew Collings will be filling in for Anthony on Saturday. The offensive linemen we're going to discuss next week are J.C. Davis from Illinois, Cage Casey from Boise State, Caden Green from Missouri, Drew Shelton from Penn State, Logan Taylor from Boston College, Trey Zune from Texas A&M, Cam Dewberry from Texas A&M, Roderick Kearney from Florida, and Bo Stevens from Iowa. Any of those guys not familiar to you right now, Anthony?
I think the only one that I haven't seen like at all would be Kearney, Roderick Kearney. I'm a Logan Taylor. I think Logan Taylor's a sleeper in this draft. So I'm interested to see what the discussion around him is next week. I like Logan Taylor quite a bit. And Bo Stevens is just man, those Iowa guys. I don't know what they feed them. I don't know what the workout regimen is in Des Moines, but like Jesus, man, they've got like literally all 5 of their offensive linemen are potential NFL players. So yeah, it's a good group. That's a solid group overall.
Yep. And ultimately that's, something, if we can just have solid offensive line groups, that tells us it's a pretty good class.
Right? I think it's, I think we've kind of been like let down by like the top end of the tackle group. And so that's kind of like put a little damper on the offensive line class as a whole. But like there's good starter potential depth players at all three spots. I actually think like this is a pretty overall a decent group that a lot of teams can get something from.
Yeah, and I think if you're willing to draft a project tackle, I think this is a better tackle class than if you need to draft an immediate starter.
Mm-hmm.
Because even like with Fa'amo, who we covered earlier today, like I'd be okay drafting a project tackle in round 3 or 4. Deion Dock, like for Buffalo, like finding a franchise left tackle is really important. So if you have one, but you know that he is at the end of his career, this is a good year to draft a project tackle. There's going to be a lot of tackles, I think, that meet the measurables, but may not be ready to play right now.
Yeah, 100%.
So, Anthony, do you want to let everybody know about your Substack and all of your other draft content?
Yeah, you can find me. You can find me on X at Anthony_Russo97, and I've got my Substack as Jim said, which is in my X bio. I'm planning on putting out. I'm trying to figure out what exactly what content I want to do these days. I got so bored with some of what I was doing. But anyway, but I think the next thing is going to be like NFL draft hot takes and college football hot takes and doing a little reaction thing to that. So that'll be good. But yeah, you can check out all my other stuff that I've put out on my Substack as well. Always appreciated. And yeah, normally I'm here. I'm not going to be here this coming weekend, but normally I am here Friday nights and Saturday mornings doing positional breakdowns and all that good stuff. And now that the tech situation has worked itself out, we're not going to have any crappy audio or camera situations, so that's good as well.
Oh, I love having you on. This works out well if it's just you and me. That was one of the things I came to the conclusion today. I'm like, we don't need a third person. This worked really well.
We're good, man. We're a good pair.
Absolutely. So thank you for watching Draft Professor, everybody. If you can go to NFL Draft Fanatic, no, I am Fanatic, on YouTube and Twitter. On YouTube, hit that subscribe, please and thank you. The best thank you can give is to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you go to the X page, what you will see are mock drafts using the Draft Professor Simulator, draft content from all the draft professors, including Anthony, as well as what the schedule of podcasts is. So if you want to know which week we're covering Fernando Carmona, hint, November 22nd, you would be able to see that if you go to the X page. And I know that because I got to make sure I get Fernando Carmona's brother popped in on a podcast wanting to know when we were going to cover his brother. So those kinds of things. Just follow on X and you'll be able to find that information. For Anthony, for myself, for the 110 people at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for watching, everybody, and we will see you on a podcast again tomorrow.